Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Oh, yeah. Live around the world on the internet at michaeldukeshow.com, where you'll find links to your audio-only stream, links to the podcast, links to the social media sites where we simulcast the radio show, and so much more. Good morning, my friends. Welcome to the, apparently it's the deep voice day today. Welcome back to the program, and thanks for coming in and joining us. Thursday edition of the big radio show, and we have got a full boat today. Joining us in just a moment, and here in hour one, is brand spanking new. They haven't even worn the shine off him yet. Representative Garret Nelson joins us from the MatSu. We're going to talk with him about his experience thus far in the legislature. We're going to talk with him about everything that's going on down in Juneau, get his take on it as a freshly minted legislator. We'll talk with him in just a second. In hour two, former Representative Ben Carpenter is going to be joining us. He's now the host, of course, of Oversight Live, which is available every evening at 7 p.m. on YouTube, where he takes the hot hot news of the day. He takes on and takes a look at everything that's going on down in Juneau, including the different committee meetings and everything else. And he gives you some behind the scenes analysis as a former legislator, because he kind of knows how the sausage has been made. And he's going to give you his unique perspective on that. This morning, I don't know what we're going to talk about, but he's going to bring something to the table, because there's plenty, baby. There's plenty of stuff to chat about there as well. So it's going to be a full show. Tomorrow on the program is Firearms Friday. Working on a guest or two. We'll see if we may have Jacob Sullum or JD Tucilli from Reason Magazine on, well, we'll see how that goes. How about that? We'll see where we go from here. Meanwhile, a quick roundup from around the state. 14 degrees here in beautiful Homer, Alaska. 3 degrees up in Anchorage. 27 below in Fairbanks with some snow, although I see that they're reporting 13 below up in Fox. So, I mean, the cold is still kind of hanging on. A little bit warmer here than it's been the last few days, but 14 weather alerts in effect for across the state for the Kenai Peninsula, including the western Kenai, all the way from Ninilchik to Nikiski, starting tonight at 11 p.m. all the way through 9 p.m. tomorrow. Big wind winter storm warning, winds gusting at up to 40 miles an hour, accumulation of 5 to 10 inches of snow. Now, the storm system could track either into the Cook Inlet or West Prince William Sound. They're not quite sure which, but it's going to be it's going to be a lot. It's going to be a lot. One more storm for you for the winter. Again, from 11 p.m. this evening till 9 p.m. tomorrow in the western Kenai, also up in Fairbanks in the Alaska Range, eastern Alaska Range, south of Trims Camp. There's more snow and more wind expected as well. In the Anchorage area, snow, blowing wind, and mixed precipitation Accumulation of up to 18 inches of snow near Portage and through Turnagain. Wind gusts as high as 60 miles an hour. That's Girdwood, Portage, Whittier, Turnagain, Seward, and part of the Kenai Peninsula from 11 p.m. this evening till 7 p.m. tomorrow. Again, a lot of snow, a lot of snow, a lot of wind. Oh man, you gotta love winter. Up in the Fairbanks, North Star Borough, in Delta Junction and Tanana Flats area, more blowing snow as well. Gusts up to 45 miles an hour. Oh, do I want to keep reading here? Southern Ketchimack Bay, including Seldovia. Hey, that's where I'm at. Snow and blowing snow expected. Accumulation 3 to 7 inches, 45 miles an hour from 9 p.m. this evening till 11 a.m. tomorrow. Could snow mixed with a change to rain around noon tomorrow. So, I mean, that'll be different. That'll be fun, right? That'll be great. That'll be great. And that's going on. Then Ski Lac Lake up north again, snow and blowing snow expected, 3 to 6 inches, wind gusts only up to 30. Gosh, that's a balmy breeze. Again, from 11 to tonight till 9 tomorrow. And then finally up in the MatSu in the Susitna Valley, 5 to 10 inches of snow along and just west of the Parks Highway. Wind gusts up to 35 miles an hour from tonight until tomorrow morning. Well, no, this is from this. I apologize. That's from 1 a.m. Friday to 5 a.m. Saturday. So, Mother Nature, she just got to get you one more punch in the junk in right before she leaves us, right? I mean, that's kind of where we're on the way through here. Anyway, I know. No, thank you. No, thank you. Somebody in the chat room is like, no, thanks. I've had enough. I know, right? I mean, it just seems like this weather just holding on. Can't decide. 4 degrees in Wasilla right now, somebody just said in the chat room. So that's your weather roundup from around the state. I don't know how I started doing that, but I kind of interested to see where everybody's at around the state. And these weather alerts, man, brutal out there. All right, well, let's get into this, shall we? Let's get things started here with Garret Nelson, who's been patiently waiting in the wings for us to get started. We'll start discussing all the madness that is politics in the state of Alaska. Garret Nelson joins us up there from the MatSu to talk about his experiences thus far. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Doing well. Good morning. How are you?
Just another, as you can see, just another beautiful day here in paradise, right? I mean, it's just if you don't like the weather, just wait. It'll flip-flop over the course of several days, and we just don't know where we go from here.
Garret, my kids have liked it. When we left Sutton, we still had bare dirt. We hadn't had any snow, and now it's just dumping everywhere. So
yeah,
they enjoy
exactly.
it at least.
Yeah, they get a chance to come back. I mean, kids always love the snow. I mean, it is what it is. The kids love the snow, but it's the adults that have to do the adulting that,
trying
to get out of the driveway or making sure the house, making sure the roof don't collapse or whatever it is. We're the ones that have to deal with all the, we're the ones that have to deal with all that. So Garret, folks, we haven't had a chance to talk to you yet. This is kind of our first visit and go round. Your appointment has put you into the kind of the hot bird seat here as you like right out of the gate. You're rushing in to try and figure this all out. So for folks who don't know you, let's talk about who you are, Garret Nelson. Who you are, a little bit of your history, where you come from, and what made you decide to throw your hat into the ring for the nomination for this vacancy. And everything else. So let's get some backstory here.
Sure. So I grew up on our family ranch down in Idaho. My family had lived in this particular valley in Mackay, Idaho, on my mom's side for like 6 generations, and we were public land cattle grazers. And the ranch ended up falling apart. I met my wife at University of Idaho. I was playing football up there. And up in Moscow, Idaho, and met my wife there and got married in college. Went back to the ranch, and then that fell apart. And then I became a pipe and a boiler welder for quite a few years, and then ended up. My mom died of cancer, and my dad died of cancer, and I was like, I don't need any help catching cancer, and so ended up stopping doing the welding stuff, and joined a company called Gravity Payments, and they're based out of Seattle and Boise as a salesman. And they predominantly do credit card processing, but my main focus is then, as it is now still, like working with software partners and integrating. So once I started doing that, I was working with people all over the United States, and we just figured we can live anywhere we want. And I really like a kind of a coastal climate. And I'd read a bunch of books on Alaska when I was, pulling graveyards when I was doing shift welding. And so I came up in 2015, kind of checked it out, and then moved the family up in 16. So we've been living in the same place in Sutton there for, it'll be 10 years this year. And then got involved with like the Sutton Community Council. And I was the chair of that for the last, 4 or 5 years. And through that, got to interact a lot with then Rep Rauscher and Senator Mike Shower. So we had and a lot of DPS people, as we had some, particular issues going on there. And so once that came up, or once, the word kind of got out that Mike was leaving and then George was going to be jumping in or moving over to the Senate potentially, it's a heavy thing. I think being in government is, the way that I think about it is that God kind of instituted 3 spheres of government. And one is the family, and then there's the church, and there's civil government. And so I think that though they're not exactly the same, the role of the father in the family, or the pastor in the church, or the legislator in civil government, I think those positions kind of carry the same weight and the necessity for that stuff. And so I think it's a very important role, and it's not something that I was planning on or pursuing, frankly, but as the opportunity came, I just kept moving one step at a time forward, and whether there was no guarantee that I was going to get it, and the doors kept opening. And so here we are now. And it was a whirlwind couple weeks, I'll tell you that, because I think I got confirmed by the House on the 30th of December. And, and I was down here on the 13th. And so it's been quite the whirlwind. We're kind of getting settled in now, though.
I can imagine as well. Can you tell us a little bit about your political philosophy? Because, where you kind of your background and your thoughts on that. My understanding was that you're a recent convert to the Republican Party. It's not something that you had previously been part of, or is that, give us some of your background as far as your political philosophy here as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I still haven't quite figured out how that happened, but yeah, I was undeclared, I guess, for a long time, and that was brought to my attention. But my family's always been Republicans, and when I was in Idaho, which is where a lot of that started, so this is just kind of the background of my political philosophy. My family was heavily involved in politics, but mainly on the kind of the cattle or agricultural stuff. So we were heavily involved in the Idaho Cattle Association. My grandfather was the president of the Public Lands Council, and so he had a lot of work in DC, and he had quit high school. I think it was the first week his sophomore year. He got in a fight with his math teacher. He was from Canada, and so he couldn't really write very fast, and so I spent years with him typing his speeches. That was part of it. And then and so we were heavily involved in that, in some of the gubernatorial work, like with Butch Otter at the time. And then Russ Fulcher, who's currently he's in the House of Representatives for Idaho back in DC. I was actually the county chair for his gubernatorial campaign. And the guy whose name is Ron Crane, who was, I think he's the longest serving Republican treasurer in the history of the United States. So he was the treasurer for Idaho for a lot of years. I did campaign work for him. And once this process started, I was leaning heavily on Russ and on Ron for advice. And so while my registration got screwed up here, it's something that I just never checked, but definitely come from a conservative background, always have considered myself a Republican and just never checked. But that is true that I am a recent Republican convert.
Yeah, I saw somebody mention that, and I was like, wow, I didn't, that
Yeah.
kind of threw me for a loop there as well. All right, well,
understandably so.
Yeah, well, we're going to get into your experience and experiences so far and what you're seeing and what you're looking at. I imagine it's been quite the experience here as we go through. We'll find out more from Garret Nelson here in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. The Michael Duke Show continues with more in just a moment. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Don't forget you can join us on Facebook if you want, or on YouTube, facebook.com/Michael Duke Show/live if you want to join the chat room this morning. We'll return in just a moment with Garret Nelson right after this.
If you missed the show, you can listen to it on your time with Dukes On Demand. Oh, and it's free. Like America used to be. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay, we're in the break right now. You can see the timer here next to my
Yep.
head.
I got you.
That's when we're coming back to the radio, so we got to get wrapped up by 00 there on that.
You got it.
Yeah, it's Kevin says, haha, out in the garage. Would you want to wake up 9 kids and your tired wife at 6 a.m. just to talk to the Michael Duke Show? Yeah, that's people are like, where is he? What is all this stuff? You're out.
Yeah, this is my office. This is my office in our rental house. And actually my wife, she goes to the gym with a kid or two every morning. So they're out. She's out getting miles in, and then I come down here to this office. It's just a garage, but it's as good as it gets.
Yeah, but it keeps 9 kids. 9 kids.
Yeah.
I saw that and I was like, man, you've been, you know what causes that, right? It's holding hands. That's how it all starts, man. That's the gateway drug. I had 5 kids and I thought people were giving me a hard time. I can't imagine with 9 kids, the looks you must get sometimes on that. So has Alaska been everything that you hoped it would be? I mean, coming up here just in the last 10 years from Idaho, and we see a lot of people from Montana and Idaho and Wyoming, kind of that whole Western, westward ho kind of, mentality. Has Alaska been everything that you've hoped it would be?
It absolutely has been. That was the deal for us, is where we lived in the Treasure Valley in the Boise area. Anytime we wanted to go hunting or fishing or get firewood, we had to travel, several hours to do it because we were in that high desert country. And that's what I wanted, was a place with more freely available natural resources. And I didn't want to live in Oregon or Washington, just kind of kept moving up the coast. And it's been absolutely tremendous. I absolutely love it. It's, we can make it. The thing that I really love, and, before I got in this position as a private citizen, it's kind of like you can make whatever laws you want, but then you get about a quarter mile off the road and you're in no man's land, and I really like that.
Kind of being my own boss, right? I mean, being my own boss out here in the middle of nowhere. Yeah. And Sutton, of course, is a bit off the beaten path for most folks. So definitely leaves you out there as well. Somebody just said, oh, it's Kevin again, Kevin McCabe. He said, no, it's Sutton. He introduced a constituent yesterday that had 21 kids. What?
Yeah.
21
that is
kids?
true.
Holy cow.
Yeah, she raised 21 kids. Not all of them were hers, but I'm telling you, it's the same amount of work. It might even be more work.
Yeah.
If they're not your own.
Well, I had to laugh because somebody said that to me one time. How do you do 5 kids? I'm like, after 3, it's all free, right? I mean, because
I totally agree.
Yeah. After
That's
3
what I tell
kids,
people is that
it just gets easy,
once
right?
you hit 3, you only have 2 arms. Somebody's going to be on the ground crying. It's like the chaos kind of maxes out there. Then it just kind of levels off.
Well, by the time you get to 3 or 4, then the first one is there to help, right? Is basically is come of age to do some of the work and help out, So So we always joked about that Riley, our first child, or my daughter, she was I think she was 10 or 11 by the time we got to the end. And so she was out there helping and doing everything else. So, I mean, everything beyond the third one I said is free. That's what it is right there. It's
Yeah.
good. Garrett, what was I don't know. I might want to hold this. No, let me just hit this. Yeah. Too bad the hospital doesn't offer a volume discount.
Yeah.
That gets kind of expensive after a while.
Yeah.
What's been your biggest surprise going down there? We got a minute. What's your biggest surprise going down there?
One of the biggest surprises at times is just the lack of communication, frankly. That's been one of my biggest surprises is that information is not shared or goals are not shared as freely as I would like.
Yeah. It's amazing. I work in the communication industry, and sometimes my wife says the same thing. We're not communicating quite as well as we should. That's how it's going to happen sometimes.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's get back to it here. Garret Nelson, our guest, The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Please like and share, follow, subscribe, ring the bell. Let's get more people involved in this if we can. Let's get back to it. Here we go. We're going to, you know what? Let me just, I'm going to mash this button and we're going to do a little bit of this before we get into it. Here we go. Don't go anywhere.
Here on the Michael Duke Show, our libertarian talk means that both the elephant and the donkey gets mad at us, pissing everyone off equally. Mission accomplished. The Michael Duke Show.
Yep, that's us. We're doing our things, doing what we want to do. Welcome back to the program. Our guest is Garret Nelson, who's the representative from District 29 up there in the MatSu. And we just got a little bit of his background here. So let's dive into the process itself. And we're going to save the last segment for his thoughts on things that he's focusing on as well. But, getting dumped into the deep end of the pool, like you said, you're nominated and appointed and approved the last week or so of December, and you got to be down in Juneau like 15 days later, right? I mean, you're like, get there, get on it, get going. So tell us the experience of getting dropped into the deep end of the pool there.
Yeah, that was definitely one thing that's a challenge is that I got dumped in, as you described it, on like the in the middle of a 2-year cycle. And so there's a lot of bills and things that are moving that have already been in the process. So when I first got here, I was like, I've got to know everything. And so I spent so many long nights just reading trying to read and understand every single bill that had been, introduced in the last session. Then I slowly realized that not every bill is going to get a hearing. And then I realized that not even if they get a hearing, is it actually going to move to the floor for a vote. And then I realized that I should probably just focus mainly on the ones that are going to be in my committees. And so I've been able to, the way I described it after about a week and a half is that, I was at the deep end of the pool and I was starting to feel the bottom with the toes, like when you're trying to get to the shallow end. And I feel like I got a pretty good grasp on it now on the ones that are actually going to be moving. A lot have been introduced this session as well, but just kind of doing a better job of managing my time and energy has been just a learning process. And like I said, a lot of these bills were already, some of them were already basically all the way through the process and we're hitting the floor early. And so when those types of things happen, I rely heavily on, I was talking about communication in the break, but I have found that there are people, honestly, Kevin's one of them, that if you have a question, he's more than willing to answer it. And then if there's a particular bill coming up, I just go and ask the actual sponsor of the bill on what they're trying to accomplish, because it's not like they come like if you read a white paper in a scientific journal or something, they have that abstract at the front, that kind of gives you an actual literal breakdown of what the paper says. The way it is here, like the title can be anything, and it could be a really good sounding title, and you're like, that sounds wonderful. And then you actually dig into the details of it, and it might do the exact opposite of what the title claims it's going to do. And so just learning how to navigate that has been challenging. But I will say that kind of communication I was talking about between groups can be a challenge at times, but I have found that just going and directly asking the person what their goals are, what the bill's supposed to do, or just asking for help on a process thing, on like rules. I've found everyone is actually very open to basically helping and giving me that breakdown.
It probably shocks people when you walk up and say, "What are you trying to do with this?" Because they're probably not used to that, right? I mean, kind of,
Yeah.
you know,
And that's pretty much how it is. Like, nobody has time to waste around here. So just get right to the point. And I always say the hardest part of any conversation, even a difficult one or an easy one, is just starting. So just dive in. Yeah.
Dive in, get it done. Speaking of getting dumped into the deep end of the pool, and this ties back to your 9 children. You know, I saw that the guns were out from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Kathy Giesel and company made a comment about how, because you had 9 kids, you had a direct conflict of interest, because you stated that you were in favor of a larger or full PFD, and because you had 9 kids, that was a direct conflict of interest, because that meant that you would make all this money and yada yada yada. And I'm just, you know, I mean, I was just kind of aghast at this point. And you actually put out a pretty good letter, which I don't have a copy of in front of me here, but give me your thoughts on, I mean, here's somebody ostensibly on your own team, or part of, I mean, she's not in the majority, but she's a Republican and yada, yada, yada. I mean, I will note this, that in your rebuttal and your response, you didn't happen to mention that her husband works for DOT and she's in charge, she's voting on the DOT budget and all this. I mean, you know, you could have taken some shots, which I did. Unabashedly took some shots at her when I read what she was saying. But I mean, tell me your thoughts on that kind of attack right out of the gate and your ultimate response to that.
Sure. And then, definitely can talk about the PFD as well. But when it happened, you know, we are doing this as a family. And so when it happened, the first thing is it made me laugh for so long and then I went and I told the family, you know, I told my kids and explained it to them that if this is the worst thing that we get attacked for, you know, having a lot of kids and loving, because we weren't planning on having 9 kids, you know, I mean, but like you say, like that stuff just happens. And so I wouldn't give up any of them. Which ones which ones and how many should I have killed so that I wouldn't have a conflict of interest? You know, those are the kind of things that I wanted to say. But then I'm reminded that, what is it, Romans 12:18, I think it says, you know, as much as it depends on you, live peaceably. And so the response was measured, and I saw what other people were saying. And so I basically just left it to other people to pull the daggers out. And in principle, you know, this is what, you know, you were talking about, your next guest, Ben Carpenter. He knows how the sausage is made, and especially early on, and I'm still operating in this regard, is that I know what I want the sausage to taste like, you know, but I'm learning on how the ingredients go in and how it's cooked, and I'm learning the process. So since I don't know the entire process, and I hope that I never lose this, I have to operate on principles. And in general, I absolutely support families. One of my best friends, he has 2 kids, and it's not about the number of kids or if you have kids at all, but I support families, I support kids, and I support, once again, in principle. And as I'm learning, this is going to be a difficult thing, you know, as I'm learning the details, but I do support a full PFD. Alaska is a unique state, and our Constitution is incredibly unique. And this is something that the people have voted on, and we should make as much effort as possible to follow the law and to provide a full PFD. I think it's inappropriate for us to take that from people and demand a haircut from everybody and not cut our own hair, which is kind of a weird analogy because I got long hair and we got long beards like you do. But I think that's a good analogy.
No, I mean, I would agree with that. I mean, we do have this quasi-socialistic constitution, which basically collectivizes all the resources in the state. Which we could argue about the downside of that, but the reality is that's what it is. And so if we are resource owners, we deserve a share of our resources. That's what Hammond had in mind. That's why he put it. As you said, the people voted on it. It went forward. And then, of course, it was working fine for many, many years until, of course, the government saw that big, juicy pot of money and said,
Oh, yeah.
"Whoa, we really want to
Yeah.
get
Oh, yeah.
that, right?"
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's refreshing to hear that you support a full PFD, and you understand the basis of where it comes from. Because we had a guest on a couple days ago running for governor saying we absolutely couldn't pay out a full PFD because we just don't have the money. But the point is, we don't have the money because the government is spending it, right? We're being taxed, essentially. This is essentially a
Yes.
tax on the people.
It is
Am
a
I wrong?
tax. Absolutely.
Well, and give me some, because because some people have said, well, no, it can't. It's not a real tax. This is a withholding, essentially withholding tax on Alaskans.
Yeah, I guess that it's really kind of those types of debates are semantic debates, and I don't really care what you call it. It is now I can't talk about those idiots in Juneau. I'm part of it. I'm part of it now too. But we are taking money away from the citizens, and then we don't. And there's tons of taxes that are being proposed right now, but we are taking money away from the citizens. And so you can call it whatever you want, but it essentially is a tax. And that's where one of the things that I believe all true wealth originates in natural resources. I don't even care if you're a tech guy that needs electricity. Everything comes from natural resources. And so we are potentially the wealthiest state in the United States and the world as far as the potential that we have. And we need to get that. And I do appreciate that our Constitution sets it up to where the citizens can participate in that wealth. And so then when we take it away, you can call it whatever you want, but it's essentially a tax. It's the government taking money away that has been set aside for the people.
Right. Well, and that's it. Again, money that's not in the hands, and then we can get down into the details of, money turning in the private economy versus money turning in the government economy.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
the number of times that it does and what it does. One of the things that, and maybe hopefully you have enough time under your belt now to understand this and see this, but one of the comments that we've seen many, many times, people like Ben Carpenter and Rob Myers have made this point very eloquently, is that in Alaska, we are a unique state because of our Constitution, because of the way we fund it, et cetera, et cetera. But one of the downsides to that is that it has disconnected the public and the private economies, meaning there is no incentive. There's no incentive for the legislature or for the ruling body to look at the private economy and say, we've got to make sure that that's healthy and strong, because they're getting all their money from the permanent fund and from the oil companies directly with no involvement of the citizenry. And that has created some challenges. You've been down there. Has anybody been talking about the private economy?
Oh yeah, everybody talks about it, man. Everybody's in favor of it. Everybody talks about it. And but I've spent a lot of time with Senator Meyer as well, and he also has been very helpful. And we've talked about this multiple times. And I think the number's probably higher in Alaska, but when I was at University of Idaho, they with an agricultural or like a ranching community, which are typically kind of remote and sort of insulated, every dollar that was spent, they figured would cycle through that town anywhere between 5 and 7 times. And so that's not government spending, that's private spending. And so that's yeah, we want businesses and we need housing and we don't have enough workers and we do all this kind of stuff. But I think there's a fundamental difference in philosophies where, you have, I don't know, the two big camps are, one is government doesn't grow. Government doesn't create businesses. Sure, it can, but to a certain extent, but it is a net drain. It is a net drain on society. Private individuals, those are the ones who create and drive businesses. They're the ones that get inspired for projects to like just build stuff. They find some deposit of gold in the middle of nowhere and they'll hack a road in there and get it, or
Right.
whatever. You know, I mean, like
Right.
you read, there's so many stories of private industry and men and women who are inspired to do something because of the potential benefit, and so they shoulder the entire risk. When the government tries to do something, even if it's risky, and a lot of times they'll do things that are that a private person wouldn't do because they recognize the risk is too high or the reward is too low, that forces that risk and the failure and the cost on everybody.
Right.
So everybody talks about it. Everybody's in favor of business. Everybody's in favor of natural resources. Everybody is, but it's different philosophies on how to get there.
Well, I mean, the government is a net consumer. It's not a net producer, right? The wealth is produced really in the private sector.
Yeah,
Everything else, I
absolutely.
mean, you know, government is a net consumer, and as much as we go and talk about things like government creating jobs and government doing, the government doesn't create any of those things. It may incentivize certain things or de-incentivize certain things
Yes.
based, you know, on the regulatory structure or framework or lack thereof. But the bottom line is the government's a net consumer, and in the state of Alaska, of course, they're consuming everything. They're like freaking locusts, right? Because any dollar that they see is a dollar that they want to spend.
Yeah, and back to kind of your original point, I don't know that you're talking about that, like Myers has talked about. There is a disconnect, and I don't know how to fix that. I don't think the way to fix it is slapping taxes on so people care more. But that's one of the big lessons that I've learned, is that it's been years and decades in the making to get us to this point. And I've talked with Brad too. You know, I've had some long conversations with Brad. It's going to take a while to, you know, get to utopia.
Right. Well, I mean, it took us a while to get here, so it is going to take us a while to turn the ship around. Unfortunately, we've got this interim between now and then that we've got to live through, which is, again, part of my challenge that I said earlier to one of the candidates was, you got this great amorphous, you know, long-term vision of more development and yada, which we all agree is great. The problem is, how do we survive between now and then? Because that's the point that we're in real quick. So one final thought on that before we go to break.
Yeah, it's going to be hard. I mean, that's just the reality of it, is that, I mean, we need to lower government spending. We are going to have to, I think, continue to take money from the people. And basically, it's like everybody needs a haircut. Everybody, this is not a problem that we can just spend our way out of. We need to spend less, and we need to bring in more money. Like, that's it. That's the equation. And so, in the middle, between the time we get it turned around, it's going to be painful. It's going to be painful for everybody.
Well, what think about this before we come back. This will be my question when we return, because you just said we need more money, and my question is, okay, I see that as one option. I see the other option as putting in a constitutional locking hard limit spending cap so that the spending can't grow. So that if we do get more money, then that money can go back to the people in the form of a full PFD. So I want to touch on that when we come back. We're going to come back in just a moment. Garret Nelson is our guest, representative from House District 29 up in the Sutton area, up in the MatSu. We're going to continue with him here in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We'll continue right after this.
Listened to by more staffers in Juneau than any other show, because their bosses told them to. And after what they just heard, oh man, they're going to be pissed.
You're a bad, bad man.
The Michael Duke Show.
Yeah, Garret, I just got to tell you, be warned. I'm sure people are going to, you know, they listen to this show and they take notes, and then they come back and they're going to scream at you for in the show, right? I mean,
I appreciate that. I'll clarify that. That's the way that I'll definitely clarify that.
Yeah, well, I just say that's something Mike Shower should have warned you about right off the bat. Is that he'd appear on the show, and then the next day he'd get a talking to by somebody over that as well.
Yeah.
David,
No, I've heard those stories. I've heard those stories. I know. That's what we're here for. We're here to engage. So
we got to engage. I mean, come on,
yeah.
we got to talk about these things. And I know it's about decorum and statesmanship, and we don't talk badly about our fellow representatives. Whatever. Okay, whatever. David in the chat room asks a good question, which I think is an interesting one. And he said, "Could Garret please help us learn about the culture in Juneau in regards to the legislature? I don't want to get you in trouble, but I imagine there's a few times when your eyes may have opened a little wide at some of the stuff. Can you tell us a little about the culture in Juneau and what you found most shocking about that?"
Yeah. I think in any place where power is concentrated, you're going to get potentially the worst of society, but also, you're going to get the best. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to bring my family down here, because one is that the way that I operate is that, when I was a welder and in a union, there's no secrets, and there's definitely no secrets here. And the rumor mill is churning nonstop, and I don't want to be involved in that at all. And so that was one of the reasons why I brought my family down. One is to kind of be a bulwark against some of that stuff, but then also it's just I'm not motivated to do things that would, get me in the news cycle as everybody's been reading about. The culture, as far as I don't know, it's on one hand it's incredibly gossipy, and then also incredibly secretive, all at the same time. But I don't think that that's any different than probably any other legislature. And we've had a great time, honestly. But I don't spend time there. There's stuff going on every night, and I just
Right.
don't. I might go to a dinner. If I do, I take my wife with me, and we have a dinner, but I don't engage in the extracurricular
Right.
activities.
Well, and I think that might be something that people didn't understand in your first commentary here, was that you're in Juneau right now. You brought your whole family down to Juneau, all 11 of you down there, and I think that's a brilliant idea. Again, a bulwark against kind of the nonsense that goes on down there, and everything else, and giving you a support system to be able to deal with.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been great. I love coming home to the kids. We every weekend we go out, and the couple weekends ago we went out and saw a bunch of sea lions, and probably about 20-25 of them right off the shore, and they started barking at the kids, and the kids were barking back, and so things like that we wouldn't have an opportunity to do otherwise. It's been a tremendously positive experience, honestly, for us as a family, and for me. I've learned so much in the last month and a half. It's been a lot of fun.
It's like taking a sip from a fire hose, man. Just
Yeah.
blasting your lips off, right, with all that information. Yeah,
Yeah.
and Harold, I don't think no, Harold, I don't think with all his family there, I think he's going to avoid the leg wrestling and the beer pong. The leg
Yeah.
wrestling and the beer pong will not be happening for Garret
Yeah.
and his place down there.
Yeah. And that's, on that though, as well, is like on the culture thing, and people think that it's wild and crazy down here. And like Kevin and I are, we're we have a bill that, like I talked about earlier, learning the process, that'll never get a hearing on trying to move either the legislature or the legislative session to the road system. And once again, I think then Kevin did a lot of work on that article that we pushed out. And the reality is that the voters have been asked to do that. It's the voters have rejected that. But when there are special sessions, it doesn't really the participation doesn't increase much. That's just from Kevin's experience, where he's done this before, and they've had special sessions in Anchorage. So I think that there's a perception, which I used to have myself as well, that this is an insulated place, and so people can do whatever they want. And and I wanted to be more involved, but I couldn't, because it's down here. But the reality is, I wouldn't be going to Anchorage every day if it was there, and I wasn't a legislator.
Right.
So it's
But
a
you would
difficult
drive
challenge.
I would argue you would drive to Anchorage if it was something important that to you and your family.
I
It would be
agree.
it'd be convenient to have it on the road system versus, somewhere else as well. All right. Do you remember the question I asked you before we went to break?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
What was it?
You're talking about we don't need more money.
Because I've forgotten already. That's what it is.
Yeah,
Well,
it was
I'm
the
getting
more
old.
money comment.
Yeah. All right, here we go. The Michael Duke Show.
As Michael always says when he's tucking me into bed, no man's life, liberty, or property is safe while the legislature's in session. Oh, wait a minute. That was Mark Twain. Oh, well, still true, though. Michael Dukes, we only steal from the best.
Absolutely. As I once said, no man is safe when the. All right, it was Mark Twain, but what are you going to do? All right. Speaking of the legislature being in session, Representative Garret Nelson is with us, newly minted legislator, House District 29. Before we went to break, I was talking about Mo money, right? Mo money. Garret, so give us your thoughts here on this ideology of, we've got it. The more money always seems to be the answer. But my biggest question is, do we have a spending problem or do we have a revenue problem?
Yeah, great point. And thanks for letting me clarify. We definitely, I think, have a spending problem. And so my comment was that, and I should have clarified it or given some context, is that where we're at right now, like that's it. We either need to cut spending or we need more money. But that's not, just like the immediate fix. But philosophically, we need to cut spending. And then we still, even if we cut spending, just like if you're running a business, you want to keep your costs down, but you still want revenue to continue growing. And we have consistently over the past, as long as I've been in the state, those extra pots of money that you said, you're like, oh yes, we have this money here. I mean, we've consistently been cutting into reserves to allow us to spend like we are. And so we need to build those things back up. I do agree on, like you said, just an absolute spending cap that you can't break. I think the governor actually asked for that. Whether that happens or not, we'll see. So it's not a problem of more money. It is a spending problem at the pure foundation of it. But in the short term, we've got to find a way to balance this stuff. And I absolutely want us to have more money coming into the state, but then it's not so we can spend it. It's so that, as we were talking about, we can build those coffers back up and we can get as much as we can to the people.
Yeah, well, they need to. We need to be at that. And again, the problem is state spending. I've shown the chart here several times in the last few days, but so I won't bother to bring it up. But we spend double the national average on a per capita basis. We spend almost double what California spends on a per capita basis. And we're spending 4 times what Florida and Texas are spending on a per capita basis. Now, you can make arguments about size of the state and geography and how tough it is and blah, 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 blah. That doesn't explain a 4-fold increase over what some of the fastest growing states in the nation are spending and say that that's the reason for it.
Yeah. And I've tried to, in this session, I've met with, so I'm on a committee. We oversee the Department of Corrections, and their costs are consistently growing, I think, at the fastest pace of any department. Trying to understand where those costs go. And a lot of it is, one example is, we have contracts with community and regional jails. And so we contract out like 50 some odd thousand beds. We use like 11,000, and we spend millions and millions of dollars on this. Some of the jails that we contract with have 0% utilization. But then the challenge is, do you just shut that thing down that has 0% utilization, and then all of a sudden, you actually need to have somebody there? What do you just chain them to a tree till the troopers show up?
Right.
Those are the kind of challenges. Or I had the Medicaid people in, and just digging into the numbers. One is that it takes them, according to them, if you wanted to pull up a report to try and figure out how we can increase efficiency or find ways to save money in that program, which we spend a tremendous amount on, it takes 3 weeks to generate a report. Like, even if you just wanted to find out, the example they gave is if you just want to find out something about hip replacements. And so if you want to dig through the data, it takes 3 weeks to get those kind of numbers. That is just absolutely inefficient. One is I just have a hard time believing that, but trying to figure out where we can actually start to constrain spending, it's like going through just a tangle of barbed wire to get a straight answer or figure it out. It's incredibly frustrating.
That is the nature of bureaucracy, my friend.
Jeez, I know. I hate it.
Yeah, confuse, obfuscate, and and deflect. That is the nature of the bureaucracy. We're down to about 3 minutes here, and so I want to give you the floor. What are you focused on? We'll have you back on. We'd love to have you back on if you'll come back.
Yeah, absolutely.
But what are you focused on? What do you got going on? We got about 2.5 minutes here.
Okay. Well, some of the things, one is, we've got bills going. We got a couple that I picked up as companion bills that are in the Senate right now, moving through. One is on transfer of title on death for vehicles. I just think that's vehicles and boats. I think that's a simple one that we can do that actually make people's lives easier. We got some private property laws and we had a hearing last week on one where it would give municipalities the right to give their own property tax exemptions. But the big ones for me, one is we're cleaning up some boundary issues on the Jonesville public use area. That should be an easy one. It's already passed the legislature and they just missed a little part. That's just a small one that just really affects, my local district. But the big one that I want to get through is just a resolution, but it is to connect the railroad from Alaska to the lower 48. Doing something like that, there's a lot of DOD money out there right now, and I'm not into like just sucking off of the federal teat, but we do need to have a railroad and we do need to be connected, and that will affect the prices on everyday goods up here more than anything else. That I really want to see that go through, and I really want to see that project started, but a lot of it goes through Canada, so it's kind of out of our hands, but I definitely want to support that project.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think opening up Alaska to the rest of the world is something that we were promised at statehood, which we never received, which I think is still, as much as I dislike taking the federal lucre, that was actually something that they were supposed to provide that we still haven't seen. And we're still suffering for it as well. All right. Well, Garret Nelson, Representative, House District 29, been an informative conversation. We'd love to, it's a fast hour. It's the fastest hour in radio.
Yeah.
We'd love to have you back on here in a couple of weeks and get more feel from you as to what's going on. We appreciate you. We appreciate you coming in and joining us today and being part of it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I look forward to doing it again.
All right, we'll hold the line for just a second here. We're going to talk to you during the break here. All right, folks, we got more coming up. Don't go anywhere. The Michael Duke Show continues. Up next, it's going to be former Representative Ben Carpenter, who's now the host of Oversight Live. He's going to come on board, and we're going to talk with him about a little bit of everything. Wood ticks, lunatics, politics, all of it. Back with more right after this. All right, Garret. Well, if you haven't watched the program, this is the time where I give you one final bite at the apple. Since we're off the air, it's just you, me, and 80 of our closest friends on the internet. We're gonna get your take on anything. Maybe something we missed, something that you wanted to hit on that we didn't, or something you wanted to expand on. Here's your final chance here. You got 2 or 3 minutes. To here.
Well, I appreciate it, and that's one thing. I've seen some of the comments, and my goal was not to come here and upset the apple cart, in a manner of speaking. Like I had no illusions that I was going to roll in here and straighten this place out, in one session. But I have learned a tremendous amount. And as we've been wrapping up some of the budget, like finance subcommittees and things of that nature, these questions, this information that I'm getting now that, we're getting these details, I realize that these are questions that I need to be asking either in the interim or earlier in the session. So my questions, a lot of them haven't been answered, but also I didn't ask the questions, so I can't, like you said, like, what was it? Like deflect, obfuscate. that is where I'm at right now. And I wish that I would have been able to start digging into that sooner. So that's one of the biggest lessons that I've learned is the real questions to get into the nitty gritty, and that I need to be asking those as soon as possible. But I just didn't know, and I'm sure that they'll give me the answers, but it's kind of like the cat's out of the bag now, or the horse is out of the barn, basically. So that's been the biggest lesson.
Right. Well, it's the actual phrase is deceive, inveigle, and obfuscate. That's that is the nature of bureaucracy, is to deceive, inveigle, and obfuscate, which all basically mean the same thing. They're just, and you're right. It shouldn't take 3 weeks to get an answer on something that's fairly simple. But this is, again, the very nature of the beast. And that's why we are spending 4 times what some of these other states are spending, is because we have basically, it's bureaucracy run amok. We've become used to it. The legislators have allowed it. As you said, they gave it, in 2013, 2014, that was our wake-up call when we were $3 billion in the hole, and we decided to draw money out of the CBR to cover that. That was our wake-up call to say, hey, we got to stop what we're doing, but we didn't. We just proceeded ahead.
Yeah. It's going to take work, but it's like turning an aircraft carrier around. You got to start. Somebody's got to turn the wheel, and it's going to take a while, but you got to start somewhere.
Yeah, no, I love it. I think it's good, and it's nice to see some, like you said. I hope you don't lose that kind of common sense, principled approach, because we've seen it. People go down there in the first couple of years, they're a firebrand, or they're, maybe even not a firebrand, they're just stalwart. And then within 2 or 3 years, they're like, well, but to get anything done, I've got to accede to this.
Yes.
And, it's one of the things, Juneau is the pod people. Maybe everybody wouldn't show up if we move the legislative session to the road system. Maybe. But I will tell you that if there is a hot button issue, you damn well know that you would have a lot more people in Anchorage or MatSu than you would in Juneau. Because
I totally agree. Yeah. The legislature needs to be accessible to the people in the easiest way possible. Whether they show up or not is beside the point, frankly.
Right.
Like you said, hot button, the people need to be able to drive down. And it reminds me of my last story. When I worked, I used to do door-to-door sales in Sun Valley. And there was this guy that ran a restaurant there, and he said that he always worked with local vendors, or as local as possible, because it's hard to punch somebody in the face over the phone. And so
it's true. That's true. Looking somebody in the, I served on an assembly. You knew when you had a room full of people that you should be thinking really hard about how you were voting on certain things. Didn't mean you always voted with what they were saying, but it really made you think when they were looking you in the eye. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep.
And this idea that somehow being down in Juneau and being isolated and being all, and we voted on this. We voted on this 7 times. Now, 5 of the 7 times we said move it, right? It was just the last 2 that we said no. So they've already denied us 5 times in this regard. And we don't have to move the whole Capitol. We don't have to move that. No, just move the legislative session onto the road system. Or at least maybe alternate every other year or something. It's just,
Yeah.
85% of the people in the state have access to the road system, and they could get down there instead of the handful that can afford to fly to Juneau. Because I imagine it was not cheap moving your entire family to Juneau. Imagine trying to fly down there for 2 or 3 days just to testify on something, right? It's not a cheap endeavor.
Yeah. And it's expensive sending the kids back and forth. The boys got to bounce back up for different things for wrestling. We've made commitments, and it's a lot of tanks of gas in one flight.
Yeah, that's right. Not easy for sure. All right, Garret Nelson, thank you so much for coming on board. We'll keep in touch here. We'll stay connected on this. Okay.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you coming on board. Thanks very much. I see that our friend Ben Carpenter is in the chat room. Hello, my friend. How are you?
Get that off mute. Good morning, Michael.
Take it off mute. How many mutes do we have? We've got a million. Between the two of us, we probably got 5 different ways to mute ourselves. Anyway, doing good, Ben. How are things going for you? You ready to go?
Yeah, we're ready to go.
We didn't talk about a topic. So what's your topic for today, Ben? What are you dialing into?
Well, I've been all over the board with what I've been doing on Oversight Live, but it's mostly focused on financial stuff. I talked a little bit about Iran last night. There may be some things that people don't know about what's going on in Iran, or this conflict that we need to know about. I think that might be something interesting to talk about.
Okay.
I've got some locations on the internet that I've found. Some folks have helped me with finding information, because if you're looking on social media, it's complete nonsense. It is so hard to tell what's true and what's not.
Oh yeah, no. Social media is definitely not the place to go for your informative, hard-hitting, accurate news. That is 100% truth right there. All right, here we go. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio.
Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That's just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Live around the world on the internet at michaeldukeshow.com and across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator. Hello, my friends. Good morning. Welcome to the Thursday edition of the show. It's been busy already this morning. We are just finished up with Garret Nelson, the new representative for House District 29 in the MatSu. It was a great conversation with him. We look forward to having him back on the program. We're about to jump into it with former Representative Ben Carpenter, who's the host of Oversight Live over on YouTube. You can find him at youtube.com/@OversightLive. Quick look around the state. 14 degrees. I'm sorry, I had to look around the corner. 14 degrees here in beautiful on top of the world in Homer, Alaska. It is 3 below up in the MatSu. It is 3 degrees in Anchorage, 27 below in Fairbanks. Lots of weather. There's lots of weather going on. There's a winter storm warning for the Kenai Peninsula from Ninilchik to Nikiski. Low visibility, winds up to 40 miles an hour, 5 to 10 inches of snow. All of this happening tonight until tomorrow, all the way through tomorrow. Up in the Fairbanks area, also 9 to 15 inches of snow. This is in the Alaska range, eastern Alaska range, south of Trim's Camp. Winds 20 to 30 miles an hour as well. In Anchorage, 6 to 18 inches of snow near Portage and Turnagain, 60 mile an hour winds through Turnagain Pass. And that's all Girdwood, Portage, Whittier, Turnagain, Seward, and parts of the upper interior Kenai Peninsula. That's again from this evening through tomorrow morning. And then Fairbanks itself in Delta Junction in the Tanana Flats area, blowing snow, accumulation of up to an inch, winds up to 45 miles an hour. And then down into the southern Kachemak Bay here, including Seldovia. Snow and blowing snow, accumulations 3 to 7 inches, 45 mile an hour gusts. And then just to add some spice to the mix, the snow is expected to mix and change to rain around noon tomorrow. So that'll be fun. That'll be fantastic. Oh, and the Susitna, the MatSu up in the Susitna Valley, 5 to 10 inches of snow with wind gusts up to 35. Because winter, she not done with us yet. She's holding on, got us by the throat, and it is what it is. It is what it is. All right, let's get into it here. Every week we've been having Ben Carpenter on the program from Oversight Live. He does this show every night about 7 o'clock and spends an hour, sometimes 2, maybe 3, sometimes. Anyway, whatever he feels like doing it and talking about the hot news of the day, usually about legislative stuff from his perspective, since he's a former legislator and kind of knows where the bodies are buried and the sausage is made and everything else. But sometimes it's different stuff as well. So let's welcome Ben Carpenter back to the program. Hello, my friend.
Hey, good morning, Michael. Good to be with you again.
Thanks for coming on. As always, this has been an educational time here to have you on the program. I hope you're growing. I hope you're growing your viewership over there at Oversight Live. I don't catch you every day, but you've got a good take on how things are going out there, and I really appreciate your concise, in-depth and insightful commentary on what's going on there. So I appreciate that. So Ben, we haven't pre-talked here about what we haven't pre-talked. That's not even a word. We have not discussed previously.
We have not communicated.
We have not communicated, about what's happening. So give me, I know you've been covering a bunch of different bases. You just mentioned during the break that you actually talked a lot about Iran in the last day or so. So let's. I'm going to give you the reins. What are we talking about today? What's on your mind as you look at all this stuff?
You were having a conversation with Garret about spending or money issues, right?
Right.
Do we have a spending problem or a revenue problem? And as it turns out, at least in the short term, we're not going to have a revenue problem this year. I would predict. I feel comfortable predicting. I don't know how much, but looking at what's happening over in Iran has significant impact to the price of oil. And that's going to impact our revenue for this coming year. So again, for folks that are tuning in and may not be aware of the actual mechanics of a budget, the fiscal year 27 budget is what they're talking about now. The spring forecast has not come out yet, and that spring forecast is going to tell us what we think we're going to make in revenue based on the price of oil going forward. And so the fall forecast from November of last year it doesn't take into account the United States and Israel attacked Iran. The spring forecast, hopefully they're able to react fast enough and we'll take that into account. But you've got, I've recently went to a website. Somebody pointed out to me, good friend did, understandingwar.org. And it's a David Petraeus, General Petraeus and General Keane, and others. There's a lot of people that are putting into this. It's kind of like a think tank, but they're doing a very good job of giving synopsis and a twice a day update on what's happening over in Iran from an open source intelligence point of view. So I didn't realize, and we didn't talk specifically about this last night because this update wasn't updated from last night, but I didn't realize that Israel is not the largest recipient of missiles and UAVs from Iran. So that tells you something, that Iran's not targeting Israel as their main goal here. The main goal is to broaden the war to affect as many people as possible so that the pressure on the United States to stop is what happens within the international community. You've seen 255 drone and missile strikes on Israel. You've seen 1,138 on the UAE alone. So we have oil fields. Let's see. We have gas lines that have been shut down I was just looking to make sure I got the right one here. The Iraqi Rumallah oil field has been shut down. Iraq's been in the black or in the dark with their electricity for a while now for some reason. Qatar has completely shut down their LNG facilities. Okay. So many companies in the area, the actual oil companies are saying, hey, look, if we don't have some resolution here within the next couple of weeks, we're going to be shutting down because we don't have storage facilities. Okay. So this is probably not a shock to anybody that's watching the oil industry or the oil distribution industry. Right. But what that's going to do is cause price changes in the future. And it's probably for the short term until they figure out what's going on here. This is not going to be a long-term conflict, in my opinion. But that's going to have some sort of impact on the price of oil and the revenue that the state of Alaska gets. So it's going to be a bump for us when it's, harder for other countries and companies. It actually is a boon for Alaska.
Now I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think that's what the next forecast for fiscal forecast, financial forecast for the state of Alaska is going to show, is that we've got a little bit more revenue than we thought we were going to have, or at least we think we're going to have because of this conflict.
Right. Well, but that also shows part of the problem, right? I mean, the way that we're factoring the spend and the budget, using the forecast and everything like that, it also shows the weakness of the system in that we don't know. I mean, many of the legislatures are probably wiping their brow going, whew, man, we dodged another bullet. We got another war. And so now our oil prices are up. And so we don't have to face the hard choices here. But as Brad Keithley pointed out earlier this week, this is going to be, this is going to be a bump for sure, but things will stabilize. And so they may say oil's going to hit $100, $120 a barrel over the short term, but will it go all throughout fiscal 2027 to even it out? And that's the danger. The danger here is they factor a budget based on whatever the spring forecast comes out in 10 days. And it's any 3 days in March prior to the forecast coming out. And of course, obviously, it's spiked greatly here in just the last few days. And so the question then becomes, what if it doesn't hold up? What if that price drops in 2 months, right? What if the price drops in 2 or 3 months and we're not even, I mean, in 2 or 3 months, we're barely into fiscal 27, right? So what happens then? In that regard, and where do we go from there? That is the danger here. Part of it is structural in the way that we factor the budgets, right?
Yes, you're right. The state of Alaska has a structural problem, and this is what I've been speaking about for a number of years now. And this gets lost in translation to, he's talking about taxes. He just wants to tax people. I'm like, you guys you just don't understand the math, okay? The price of oil is what people are going to fixate on, just like they're fixating on the missile strikes or the drone strikes. And really, that's not the thing that you need to be looking at. The true problem here is logistics. It's financial in nature. So you've got problems with not just oil tankers leaving through the Strait of Hormuz, but you've got all other sorts of tankers and ships having a problem. So your insurance rates are going to go up, which means inflation and other prices across the board, across the world are going up. And for how long that impacts the worldwide economy is a question mark right now. What's not a question mark is we know that the state of Alaska is relying on oil money, and we know that we're relying on permanent fund earnings. And that's pretty much it outside of federal dollars. Okay. So when we have spikes or disturbances in world economy, that's going to impact our budgets in the future, because we're structuring our state to be reliant upon that source of revenue, just like we're reliant upon oil. Okay. So oil's now down 17% of the budget. It's not a percent of the revenue that we get. So oil is not the largest source of revenue for the state anymore. 2/3 of it, 66%, I think, is permanent fund earnings. So the decision in the legislature has to be that we're making a decision about whether we're going to spend it on a dividend or whether we're spending it on state government. And the growth of state government, the spend on state government, is winning that argument. So the dividend's going to go away, but we still have this structure that says we're going to use our worldwide economy money, right? That's where we're getting our money from. We're going to use that to pay for state government. So then when things happen in the world, you're going to see consequences for that. Now, we do have this look back feature on how much we can draw out of the fund. But the point that I'm getting at is this is the structure that we're putting in place. And it's not based on what the economy of Alaska is doing. The legislature doesn't really care. It isn't a concern about whether the economy in Alaska grows, the private economy grows or not, because it doesn't impact the budget. We care about oil, and we care about now a worldwide economy, and it's continuing to grow. There's $200 million more this year in permanent fund earnings than we had last year. So the larger picture, and this is the thing that I hope that Garret Nelson as a new representative, it's been a tough, lots to learn. Take the hat off and look bigger picture, because what the structure that we're setting up is for our state government to be funded completely from the world economy through this permanent fund earnings.
Right.
That's what we're setting up.
Yeah. And I mean, you highlight the fact that, early on, especially when oil was the primary funding mechanism. That's what Rob Myers and others have talked about as being the resource curse, because then we're at the mercy of the resource itself, which is a very volatile thing. And now we're looking to turn it to the PFD and the fund, or the permanent fund, not the PFD, but the permanent fund itself. And that, of course, is dependent on world markets, which can also be very volatile. And so we have a structural problem because we're depending on two volatile resources for the revenue and the funding of the state. One, the market may be slightly less volatile than the oil, but at the same time, there's a supreme volatility there, and you can't predict it. And instead of working on a more sure way, like a 5 or 10 year rolling average of what we received in the past, instead we're always betting on the if come, and that's part of the problem.
Yes, and I'm not suggesting that the state shouldn't take advantage of a worldwide economy, and it shouldn't take advantage of oil money. I'm not suggesting that. I guess maybe what the question should be is, what's the correct percentage of your revenue? What is the healthy sources of revenue that the state should be looking at? Okay. Because putting all your eggs in one basket, or putting it all in international economy and oil, which are two linked, right? Those are linked. Doesn't incentivize thinking and activity of where I have a job, where most Alaskans have a job, right? It doesn't have anything to do with the Alaska economy.
And it doesn't give you the diversity that you need either. If one sector is hit, then the other sector can still survive because of that linkage between the two. They still go up and down, maybe not as, one more than the other. But again, there's a connectivity. There's no diversity to that revenue.
There's no diversity. And because of the power of compounding interest over time, you're going to see more and more revenue. Even if there are down years, you're going to see more and more revenue coming from this international economy through your permanent fund. Okay. The goal of the fund managers is $100 billion right now. We're at 90 something unofficially. Okay. So we're going to be $100 billion in the next couple of years, assuming that we have stable growth continue. But in this decade, we're for sure going to have 100 billion. And within 2 decades, we're probably going to be at 200 billion. It takes less time to get from 100 to 200 than it does from 0 to 100.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
So the point that I'm getting at is that eventuality in our lifetime, or in our kids' lifetime when they're adults, grandkids maybe, you're going to have $10 billion coming from the permanent fund through a 5% draw to spend on state government, and it won't have anything to do with the private economy in Alaska. So everyone that demands spending, all of your special interests, will continue to line up at Juneau, and that's who Juneau is going to care about. You're going to have you're setting up a structure to have large government, totally unrelated to your private economy. So why do you need a private economy?
Ben Carpenter is our guest. He's the host of Oversight Live over on YouTube. I got links up in the chat room for that if you want to go check it out. We'll continue in just a moment. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio.
Running on 100% pure beard power. Oh, also some coffee. We dip our beard in coffee.
Nice beard.
The Michael Duke Show.
Okay, we're in the break with Ben Carpenter, and I think Chris nails this. He nails the problem and kind of summates what you were saying there. He said we should stop questioning revenue and focus on expense. The problem is the legislature wants to continue looting. That's what needs to be stopped. Revenue can be figured out later. I mean, we could have plenty of revenue if we were living within our means, right, Ben? I mean, if we were living like other states were living, and we're spending, double what the national average is, 4 times what Texas and Florida is, almost double what California is. If we focused on the spending side of it, the revenue issue would solve itself at that point.
Yeah, there's 3 issues that I'd bring up that kind of highlight the problem. One of them is your unfilled vacancies, your positions that get funded, but you never hire anybody into it. The other one is the systemic problem the state's got with regard to its pay scale and its classifications, which leads to and exacerbates or is part of the problem of this unfunded or unfilled vacancies. And then the other part is this mismanagement is the word that I would just use, that is detailed in our state audits. We've got a huge problem of being able to manage our government appropriately, and it's costing us. Every time you see an audit or an investigation say, hey, there's delay in whatever is happening, that delay equals money. It equals cost. It equals overtime. It equals consternation and friction and people not wanting to come to work because it's so frustrating to work here, right? And that goes into your recruiting and retention problems. It's because of management. We aren't managing our government appropriately, and it's costing us more. So what's the dollar figure? Is it 0.5% of the total budget? Is it 1%? Is it 5%? Is it 10%? I don't know what that percentage is, but there is a percentage of what we're spending that is not necessary because we are mismanaging it. So if we were focusing on that, if the governor was focusing on it, if the commissioners were focusing on fixing that mismanagement, then the evidence would be we don't have a pay and classification problem. We don't have unfilled vacancy problems, right? That would be the evidence of the problem getting fixed. But it continues to be a problem because we're not addressing it. We're not addressing it. And that means that we don't care. We do not care about fixing the government and getting less costly, getting more efficient. We don't care about that because we got plenty of revenue, right? There's no pressure. There's no real pressure in Juneau to do anything because we got plenty of revenue. There is not a deficit problem as long as you do away with the dividend.
Right. Well, and then you get this misunderstanding. I mean, even our friend Harold, he says a dollar in the economy is a dollar in the economy. I mean, $12 billion spend would be great for private business. And economists are all screaming at him right now because, again, a dollar in the private economy that turns 6 or 7 times versus a dollar in a government economy that turns once, maybe. I mean, that's the difference. That's what we're talking about.
It's a perfect example. Agriculture is really easy to see this, right? And people poo-poo the idea of agriculture in Alaska. But if I buy a head of lettuce at the store and that head of lettuce came from a farmer in California or in Mexico, then that dollar that I spent, a portion of it goes to transportation, and then some portion of it actually goes to the farmer. And that farmer in Mexico or California gets to spend it to put food on their table. If I was producing the same head of lettuce in Alaska, then the farmer's portion would be $1 that stays in Alaska, and I then spend it locally for whatever the farmer needs. Right?
Even the transportation cost would be local transportation costs that would then be put back into the pockets of Alaskans, right? That's
exactly right. So you just extrapolate that out into other branches or other areas of the economy, and it works as well. The more that we are exporting our dollars out of the state, the less dollars there are here to help or to turn over in the economy and increase the wealth of the state. We're hemorrhaging dollars out of this state.
Yeah. Ben Carpenter is our guest. Again, you can find him at Oversight Live. You're almost to 100 subscribers, Ben. Almost there. 91.
It's a big mark. It's kind of a pride thing. It does nothing for me other than that.
Yeah, exactly. I remember my first 100 subscribers on YouTube. It was not easy. So if you would like to go over there right now, he only needs 9 of you. There's 50, 60 of us in the chat room. 9 of you to subscribe right now at the link for Oversight Live, which I just dropped in the chat room. Go over there and subscribe. Let's see if we can get him to 100 before the end of the show today. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Here we go.
Alaskan Talk Radio with a host who actually lives in Alaska. I know! Weird, right? This is The Michael Dukes Show. Starring Michael Dukes.
Starring is a bit of a stretch. I mean, that just seems a little pretentious there. Although I do have my own IMDb page. I'm just saying. All right. Welcome back. Ben Carpenter, our guest, The Michael Dukes Show. He's the host of Oversight Live. We were just saying that he's almost up to 100 subscribers. So go ahead and go over to youtube.com/@OversightLive and get subscribed there. We only need 8 or 9 people to get there and get subscribed to hit him over 100. Spending is the issue, Ben. I mean, I don't know how to say this. I've been saying this same thing for 25 years. I used to just say we have a spending problem, and they would try and frame it as a revenue problem. And we've gone so far down this path that now we have a spending and a revenue problem, ostensibly. But as I just said, if we restricted our spending down to what the average was, or even a fraction of the average, in the, even 150% of the average of what the rest of the United States is spending, our revenue problem would disappear, right? I mean, so this is literally trying to control the spend in the state.
Yeah, you've got 2 ways to deal with this. And I was listening to or reading something from Milton Friedman that said the only way to reduce spending is just cut it at the budget. It's a line item. It's a spreadsheet issue. You just reduce the dollar figure that's on the budget. And I like to think that's something that we tried. Dunleavy tried that his first budget, and all hell broke loose in this state. Right now, maybe he miscalculated and said, "Hey, $1 billion all at once is maybe not palatable, but maybe we should have cut a smaller amount and did it over increments over time. Maybe that would have worked." But then Dunleavy is replaced by somebody else, and there's a new policy that comes in, and now you've got spending back up where it was, right? So the point that I'm trying to get at is that's not the only way to reduce spending. The other way to reduce spending is to actually manage your operation better. But that is the harder road to take. It's the thing that sustains it over longer term, but it's the harder road to take. It requires legislators to actually know what they're talking about when they're talking about management and expectations of department managers. And it requires appointed commissioners to care about whether the department is getting better or not, healthy, right? And so ultimately that points back to the voter that says, hey, we're sending both of those people there. We're sending the governor and the governor's appointees to our government, and we're sending the elected representatives into the legislature. We're sending them. So ultimately it goes back to the people. They've got to make an assessment here. If it's a spending problem, if it's a government spending problem, inefficiency problem, and it's systemic, it's been happening for years and years and years, then you'd better send somebody that knows how to deal with that. Is that who we're sending?
Right. That's a question. And who's focusing on it? I mean, we had a candidate on earlier this week that, well, I mean, I'm so disappointed because although they acknowledge that the fiscal crisis is one of the biggest problems here, their answer is not to get in there and reduce the spending or doing everything else. The answer was more resource development. Well, if you've always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got, which is the more we've received, the more we've spent. If we don't address the spending problem as the cornerstone of any start here, and if we don't, I mean, spending is the main problem. Now, you could say it's from just the line item, or you could say government efficiency and getting down into it. Any of those things, any of those would have been acceptable answers to me. But the problem is it's like nobody wants to take that hard road, because getting into the bureaucracy and getting into the minutia of this is hard, right, Ben? I mean, we had Will Stapp on yesterday, and he's talking about a program that hasn't had a single participant in 6 years. A program in government. He's been trying to eliminate it ever since he's been in the legislature, and they won't even eliminate a program that costs $50,000 or $100,000 a year to manage that has no people in it. They won't, because maybe one day somebody will need it. I mean, this is the minutia and the bureaucracy that you're fighting in this regard. And it's not, I can't blame the bureaucrats for that, because that's legislators who are saying no to it, but the bureaucracy is not helping that.
No, the bureaucracy is not. The bureaucracy is incentivized to keep that type of thing away from the legislature. They don't want scrutiny. They do not want scrutiny from the legislature, right? They avoid it at all costs. Their briefing and the things that they ask and the structure that we've got set up for equating what has happened, how did you spend your money, to the questions that you're asking of us now, which is increased spending for the future. There's a complete disconnect there. The legislature is not considering how what kind of performance a department did last budget as justification for spending on this year's budget. That is not part of what we talk about. It's not the structure that the legislature goes through in order to approve a budget every year. All the legislature really is doing is putting a blessing on or scrutinizing the additional ask that the administration is coming to them this particular year budget cycle for funding. So there's no scrutiny. Another example, if there was scrutiny, a sign would be that the legislative audit from the previous year, the statewide single audit, the findings in that audit would be part of the budget process. It would be in House Finance and Senate Finance. It would be in the subcommittees process. You would see the audit findings associated with particular departments that your spending decisions are being scrutinized on. Okay, so a department's asking for $100,000 more this year. You would be looking back at the audit and say, hey, well, there's an audit finding here, and this audit here is from the previous year. So we're actually talking 2 years back. Did you fix this? Is this right? What do you need to fix this? Because this is inefficiency. Right. But that conversation is not happening. It could. No. All it takes is the legislators to decide that that's what needs to happen. Is we need to have a conversation about the audit that just happened.
And of course, we've seen audits, and I saw the headline. I didn't read the article yet, but there's a headline in the ADN this morning talking about OCS finally responds to the audit of things that they were supposed to do, but they never did, and yada. I mean, it's the Will Stapp zero-based budgeting bill where he wanted one department to go through zero-based budgeting, and OMB said, well, we just can't do that. We just don't know how to do that. I mean, who's in charge? Is it supposed to be the law? Is the bureaucracy part of it? I would argue that you have a twofold problem here. You have the legislators who are all about the spend and wanting to make sure that their constituency and their donor groups and everybody else is taken care of so they can get reelected. And then you have the bureaucracies who are invested in, like you said, don't look over here. Don't pay attention to this. Oh, we'll get that information to you in 3 weeks. That simple request for a simple answer. We'll get that to you in 3 weeks. It's deceive, inveigle, and obfuscate all the way through. And then you got the legislators who are spending to protect their own, reelection chance. I mean, this is a huge problem.
It is a huge problem. One of the reasons why I created this concept of oversight, of highlighting some things in Juneau that people need to know about, is because we, the people, establish the government for our sake. And our government is doing what we're telling them to do through the representation that we send down there. We are not sending the appropriate people down there that are holding the feet to the fire of the executive branch of the administration to fix themselves. We're not sending those people down there. That is very, very clear to me. So you're either going to continue having the problems that we have because the legislature has the power. We're just not exercising it. So you are either going to get fed up and send people down there that can actually think, that can actually do what needs to be done, and don't care about whether they make a career down there. I mean, this is, for some people, this is the highest pinnacle of importance that they've ever achieved in their life, is serving in the legislature.
Well, the legislator's not incentivized to care about it. They're not incentivized to cut this. The incentive is to spend more to make sure that they take care of their groups so that they can be reelected. There's no incentivization to get them to cut the spending.
Yeah. So the incentive is financial. It is, if you do not cut spending, you're going to lose the dividend. If you still do not cut spending, you're going to have a tax. So the reality is, if you want to fix the problem now, people have got to realize that they are going to lose money. Human nature says that if you take money out of my hand that could have come versus take money out of my pocket that is already here, I care more about one of those. It's the stuff that I already have in my pocket. So if you're going to take tax away from me, take my taxes out of money I already have versus take $1,000 out of a $3,000 or $2,000 out of a $3,000 dividend, and I still have $1,000, that's a completely different response, human response, than if you took $1,000 out of my pocket, right? And so I firmly believe the the people who are the movers and shakers in this state do not care what's happening with our state budget because they are not personally impacted. And until that happens, we're going to find enough people that are saying, you know what, I don't really care about how the government grows. I don't care about the spending problem as long as it doesn't impact me personally. That is the root cause of the problem that we have in Juneau right now. That and those people, some of those people are like, my business is tied to state spending, and so I of course don't care about the spending problem as long as that spending keeps coming to my business. It's a vicious cycle. But that's the issue is if from a human nature perspective, if we do not feel the pain, if we do not have some version of a Pearl Harbor, we are not going to address the problem. We're just going to allow the status quo to happen. And what I'm saying to people is that future that you're handing to your kids for the state of Alaska means that your government is going to be fully funded from your permanent fund, and it's going to grow similar to what you have with a federal government and the debt that we're allowed to assume at the federal level in lieu of taxes.
Right.
And you're going to have a state government that is so large that your freedoms that you thought you enjoyed are going to be intruded upon because there's a whole lot of good idea fairies out there that are going to cause problems in our lives
and have to justify their positions. And so they have to do these jobs or expand the jobs to justify what they're doing to get more in the long run. That's what it's all about.
That's right.
And you're right. They're treating this dividend as a withholding. And as Milton Friedman once said something about withholding being one of the most evil things that it could come about, because people, again, they don't notice it if it doesn't hit them. If you give it to them and then you take it away, it's one thing. If you just give them a part of it and they never see that other part, that's what really screws up the whole system. All right, Ben Carpenter, our guest. We're going to continue one more segment here. He's at Oversight Live on YouTube, youtube.com/@OversightLive. He only needs 2 more of you to subscribe to hit 100 subscribers. So if you're listening right now, slide on over there on your app and just look for @OversightLive. You'll find it there. Back with more. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio.
If you missed the show, you can listen to it on your time with Dukes On Demand. Oh, and it's free. Like America used to be. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Yeah, exactly, Frank. Withholding like income tax. Take it out of your check before you even get it. And that's what they've done with a permanent fund, right? It's a withholding tax, essentially. You're paying for state government out of your permanent fund dividend. And it's not like they don't want the rest of it. I mean, Kathy Giesel, I should pull the audio up again. Kathy Giesel. Oh, just think of think of what we could spend that $685 million on. Think of, we could backfill Medicaid. We could pay for defined benefits. Natasha von Imhoff. We could pay for tourism centers, and we could pay for treatment centers for homelessness, and we could do all these things with that $685 million. They want to take it all. In fact, that was the Chris said, losing the dividend is what they want. This is not a negative consequence in their eyes. Losing the dividends means they win trillions in state resources. I mean, that's the end game. The end game is to consume and subsume all of the dividend, right?
Yeah, it is. It's an indictment on our modern culture. Okay. Inflation is also, Milton Friedman would talk about this. Inflation is also this silent tax. And this concept of the federal government printing money, the federal government going into debt, and we're the recipients of that. Alaska largely, especially when you can consider the health money that our federal delegation was successful in getting, right? $1 trillion coming to the state of Alaska potentially over the next 5 years.
Is
Did I
a
say
billion.
$1 trillion?
Yeah, you said $1 trillion. You've been working on national stuff. It's $1 billion, but yeah,
$1 billion. My apologies. Yes, $1 billion over the next 5 years. The point is, 25% of that's debt. It's stuff. It's money that hasn't been created yet. Wealth that hasn't been created yet, and it's future generations that are going to have to pay for that. And we're okay with that. Presumably, as long as we benefit from it, we're okay with it. It is a philosophical problem that we have I would say that it's greed is the root of it, but it's philosophically the problem we have is that we just don't understand what's going on. We don't understand who's paying for what. The state of Alaska is setting up a system right now. If they're allowed to roll the earnings reserve account into the corpus of the fund, they're setting up a system where the spend, the 5% draw, regardless of what earnings we get every year, regardless of what our long-term earnings are, regardless of that, the government will draw 5% out of that fund or whatever the effective rate is. Okay. That means that if you don't earn enough to cover your draw, you're going to draw from the principal of the fund. And as any fund manager knows, if you are drawing down the fund in down years that your investments are not keeping up with inflation or just didn't meet your target goals, you're going to damage the earning potential for the future. So that means in future investments, if your future investments do great, they have to do double great. That's Ben's term, double great. Not only do you have to repay that money that you spent out of the fund, but you have to repay the interest that would have been earned on that money over time. And this is where the power of compounding interest really eats into the earning potential of the future. So it isn't just about the money that we spent this year and whether we have good returns in the future. It is, do you have good enough returns in the future to overcome that compounding interest benefit? So we're literally stealing from the future just like we are at the federal level. And there aren't enough people in Alaska that see this or care that that's what we're doing. And it boils down to, I don't want to pay taxes. I don't want to pay taxes at the federal level. Keep spending at the federal level. Keep spending. I don't want to pay more taxes. Same thing at the state level.
You're talking about, overdrawing the fund. Did you see Brad's chart here the other day? This is from Callan. This is Callan, the PF, the Permanent Fund Corporation Advisors, where they showed the 5-year rolling average that in, 14 of the 29 years that they had there, they were under the 5% draw. If you don't think that they're going to be drawing from the corpus, that should show you right there that that's a lie. They're going to draw from the corpus. That is
100% a lie. Yeah.
Yeah.
Callan was very clear that their projection, their confidence interval for meeting 5% plus inflation is less than 50% of the time. So what do you do the other 50% of the time that you didn't meet CPI plus or a 5% plus CPI? You're going to draw from the corpus.
Yeah.
This is 100% a move to protect the spend from the corpus, regardless of whether you draw from the corpus and hurt your future earnings or not. Yeah. That is 100% what the legislature is attempting to do right now.
Well, if you read this slide, which is from Callan, they even say in here, you got to do something. This is you can't. No, don't do it. It's a warning more than anything else.
We can fix it. I'm not sure what time we've got here, but we can fix it. You just don't allow the draw to exceed inflation plus your earnings.
Your real returns, basically your real returns, right?
Your real returns, right? You don't allow the draw, but that would mean that you wouldn't have a 5% draw. You would have a 1% draw or a 3% draw. It would not be predictable from year to year or as predictable. And you wouldn't have, again, this is the reason you have a PFD.
Here we go. Let's get to it. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio.
The Michael Duke Show. Not your daddy. Wait, sorry. Not your daddy? Ooh, not your daddy's talk radio. Whew. I was scared for a second. Thought we were going down. Here's Michael Dukes and the show.
All right, we're continuing. Ben Carpenter is our guest. He's the host of @Oversight Live on YouTube. You can find him at youtube.com/@ the @ symbol. youtube.com/@OversightLIVE. And one of you is going to be the lucky number 100 subscriber. He's got 99 subscribers right now. He needs one more. So if somebody's listening, go out there and hit the subscribe button, and he's going to go over the top for that 100, which is a milestone for YouTube. And hopefully somebody out there listens it and jumps over there and mashes the button. Okay.
Even you, Harold, you can go subscribe.
Yeah, even Harold can subscribe to our resident curmudgeonly troll can subscribe and do it to it. All right, Ben. One final segment here for today's show. Lots of things going on in the legislature. There's lots of subcommittee closeouts happening right now on the finance committee where the committees are doing things.
Waste of time.
It's a waste of time. Waste of time. Dude, it's so crazy to watch. I don't have enough hours in the day to watch all the subcommittee closeouts, but some of them, I get some of the snippets and I see some of this stuff, and I just nobody is willing to be the adult in the room and say we've got a problem. It's always, oh, we could just spend one more shiny dollar and it'll fix the problem. There is nothing going on. So what are you watching here in this next week? What are you, Ben Carpenter, host of Oversight Live, what are you looking at and watching here in the next till next Thursday when we come back again? What are you going to be watching for?
We desperately need low cost energy in the state. And it is going to be incumbent upon the legislature to do something about the tax structure with regard to the pipeline. And I really want to see what's happening with regard to that. The conversation with Senate Resources and then Senate Finance is really key as to where that is. And the longer they delay on fixing that problem, the worse off it is for the project. So I really would like to see some movement on that. If I had a magic wand, I'd be like, this needs to be your priority. Like, the budget can wait. You got a couple more months here. The budget can wait. Get this done, because that's really needs to be a priority. What is the state's policy going to be on taxation for the oil pipeline? I'm sorry, the gas pipeline.
Right.
That is one thing that I'm really keen on.
Well, and I guess the question is, because again, when we start talking about things like this, it feels like, we're going to be talking about low energy. What's government's role in that? And essentially, it should be, instead of spending money per se, it should be getting out of the way, regulatorily wise and everything else, but also in offering these incentives is another way to do it. Now, that does cost us some revenue in the long run, or in the short run, but in the long run, it will be better overall, right?
Yes. And here's another thing, is that to the extent that our land managers are focusing on maximum yield, maximum earnings for land, we don't have an incentive to get land into the hand of agriculture users, because that's low yield or low return for state government, right? So to the extent that our managers are focusing on oil and gas development or mineral development in the state, that process for making that happen needs employees. It needs good employees. And so to the extent that we skimp on that area, it delays and adds cost to the resource development. So this fiscal conservative says, if there's one area that we need to have as efficient as possible and maximum employee hiring, it's in our natural resources department, where the processing of paperwork, and I would also argue that it's not just the processing of paperwork, it's the commissioner's responsibility to make sure that any processing of paperwork is what's actually needed, what's necessary. And I have spent time studying process improvement, and I know that with every additional signature that is required on some form or some level of supervisory response, adds time and cost to projects. So incumbent upon our managers to look at what's necessary, what's statutorily necessary. And if there's things that are in the statute that's like, this doesn't make sense, why are we doing this? Then that needs to be communicated to the legislature in a bill for them to reduce or eliminate that statutory hurdle that's not really making any sense, right? So focusing on that at our natural resources, or our DNR, is really super important for growing the economy, the resource development economy. I don't know.
And again, these are the long-term things that we're talking about here: cheaper energy, affordable economy, trying to pull these things back. But the cornerstone to all this has got to revolve around some kind of spending mechanism, some kind of regulator, some kind of cap, right? I mean, but the lunatics are not going to hand the keys back to the head nurse. The lunatics in the asylum are not going, they're not going to want to give this up. We've seen this when there's been discussion about a spending cap. You tried to put a spending cap in. Others have tried to push a spending cap of varying degrees. But none of them, even the weak ones, have even gotten a hearing, because why would they give up the power and control that they have now?
Yeah. So you're speaking to somebody who's been 20 plus years in the military. I've been to war. I take a look at the people who I'm leading into war, and I say, you know what? I'd feel more comfortable if I had somebody else instead of this person, and I really this leader over squad leader over here really is not where I need him, and I really would rather have a replacement that's better, right? And at the end of the day, you go to war with the people you have, not the people you want. So you, as the leader, have to figure out how to get the mission accomplished with the people that you have. That is what leadership is all about. It's your responsibility to make sure that happens. Okay. So yes, we can fix the systems, but ultimately the leader is the one that's responsible for making things happen. So if you extrapolate that out into our state government, then getting efficient or getting growth in the private economy, those types of things, balancing the budget in a way that makes everybody happy, that's a leader's responsibility. So when we're talking about a long-term fiscal plan or reorganizing how we do things, the structure, you have to recognize that there are fiscal levers and there are political levers. We don't have all of the people in the legislature or in the government that we really need. So that's up to the people. We can solve that problem periodically through elections. But after the election's done, you got 2 years where you have, or 2 legislative cycles that you have to do something, right? You have to fix something. And that means that's why compromise happens. Compromise is not something you do prior to the election. It's what's forced upon you after the election. So we have to recognize that there's a cost to doing nothing. Even if you get half a solution after the election through the compromise option here, even if you get half the solution that you can address after the next election, you're better off if you're moving in the right direction than getting nothing and staying on the status quo. So that's why I've been saying you got a fiscal problem and then you got a political problem sitting on top of it.
Right.
Solve this fiscal problem by compromising on the political problem, and then you're moving in the right direction.
Falling forward means you're still moving forward, right?
Exactly.
You just pick yourself up and you fall forward again if that's what it needs to do. We got about 2 minutes here, Ben. Final thoughts for this week and Oversight Live and everything else. How do folks find you? Give me the final rundown here.
Well, you go to YouTube right now, OversightLIVE.com. If you just Google that or just search it at YouTube, it should pop up, Oversight Live. Soon, I'm going to be broadcasting on Facebook as well at Facebook/OversightLIVE. I had to wait 60 days to be able to do that. So anyway, there'll be another outlet here for Oversight Live on Facebook as well. If you have questions or you want to see particular content on the show, if there's something that's important to you, send me an email at producer@OversightLIVE.com, and I'll do my best to answer your question on air or off air or whatever's required. And I'm always open to ideas on what we need to look for. My focus and my bent is on this systemic problem, on management, on finances. That's where my bent is. But if there's something you want to see, then let's look at it.
Yep, I can't wait to see you. In fact, congratulations to John. John was the 100th subscriber to Oversight Live. They've hit the 100 mark now. John Griesbach in the chat room was kind enough to hit that button one more time. So congratulations to Ben Carpenter on that. Ben, we appreciate you coming on board and being part of it with us today. As always, it's great to talk with you. Thanks for being part of the show.
Thanks, Michael. Great to be with you. Thanks,
all right, folks. We're out of the way. We got to go. Tomorrow's Firearms Friday. We'll see you then. 100, baby. You hit 100. You hit 100 subscribers.
Thanks for your help with that, Michael.
Hey, no, I know it's hard. I remember trying to get over 100 the first time when I first started simulcasting on YouTube, and it was brutal. That last 15 or 20 was some of the hardest folks, and now we just showed you what Ben's was. What's mine at? Where am I at here? 707 subscribers on YouTube. I only need 300 more to hit the 1,000 mark, you know. And you see these guys with 100,000, 500,000, a million, it's just, we're in our own little small corner of the world here. If I got 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, I'd feel pretty happy as well. So, but 100 is a big mark, and I'm glad you made it through, Ben. You're doing some good work. I'm hearing people talk about it. Just keep up, man. Just keep up the good work. It's good stuff. What are you looking at for tonight's show?
I haven't even decided yet. I need to sit down and look at what happened in the legislature the last couple of days and prioritize it. So honestly, and I'm completely honest, I'm not sure what we're going to look at.
Okay. All right. Well, that's a fair. I have that. Sometimes I walk into the studio with no idea what I'm going to talk about until I sit down and get ready. So I know what that is. Wait, Lisa just said, she says, I'm at 879 subscribers. What? Now I feel like I've wasted my life. I'm only at 707. I don't know what Lisa's doing to get 879, but I feel like I'm wasting my life away. All right. Well, Ben, it's good to talk with you, my friend. I don't know. I keep saying don't grow weary in well-doing, but sometimes, dude, I'm tired, right? I'm just tired of watching this whole thing come apart. And nobody seems to care. Well, we care, but we seem to be the only ones that care, right? That's kind of the thing. So give the exhortation to people to not grow weary in well-doing. Give me your final thoughts on that, and I'll let you go.
Yeah, it is definitely has to be a philosophical and an internal principled thing, because if you were just taking feedback as your mechanism for worth, then you're not going to do this. Like it's a thankless job, right? It doesn't pay well. You've got, I mean, just realize that the many of the signers of the Declaration of Independence, they weren't wealthy people after that. Like they suffered, and that's important. We have to be like, what cost are you willing to pay in order for the things that you hold in value? And if that's a low cost, and after that you're not willing to pay it, then it doesn't really have that much value. But if you're willing to give it all for that thing, freedom, then you do it because it's the right thing to do.
Well, again, don't grow weary in well-doing, and just keep on keeping on is what we need to be doing. So I appreciate you coming on board, my friend. Appreciate that. I just subscribed to Lisa Adeline's page too, because she's going for 1,000. Maybe I can help get her over there. So I did that as well. All right, my friend. Well, thank you for coming out. As always, it's a pleasure. I don't know how we get through it so fast, but the fastest 2 hours in radio. Doesn't it feel that way sometimes, Ben? You're at the 3-hour mark of the stream and you're like, how did I get here? I got to go to bed here eventually, right?
Yes. Somebody comes in my door here and hands me a note and says, hey, it's time. You've been doing this a while.
Yeah, it's time to go. Time to go. All right. Well, thanks, Ben. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you next week.
All right. See you later, Michael. Thanks for your help.
You bet. Okay, folks, we're out of time. I need 1,000 subscribers. Now Lisa's got me all jacked up about this. All right, we gotta go. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio.
We've shed our terrestrial radio skin, and now we are slimy lizard internet people. It's the Michael Duke Show.